We are joined now by Jessica Coody of the Huskers Radio Network. Jessica, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. My team got a
Oh,
sweep
here
last
we go.
night.
No, I really like the Thunder's team. I'm a big Chet guy,
Yeah,
so I'm rooting for you. I appreciate their dominance in round one.
I know they're just so much fun. There's so many different weapons, and they're so young. And
Would you
Sam
knock it off?
Presti, Sam Presti, say what you will. I mean, there were times you're like, "What the heck are you doing?" But he's pretty much a genius.
Are you a little worried at all? Because I assume you've been a Thunder fan for a little while.
Yeah.
Do you have any remaining trauma from the last young core that you thought was going to be together for a
Oh,
while?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay,
Let's not bring that back.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
The queen of needling doesn't want to bring up any touchy topics.
No,
And that's
yes.
something.
It does, but I mean, the most of them are locked in. Like SGA is locked in. And half of them are on rookie contracts for a while, and then I think they still have 85 more draft picks left. Pretty high draft picks, so I think they're set for a while.
I think you're probably right. I got to ask before I let DB derail the conversation here.
I would never. Jessica knows.
Jessica,
Business.
I got to ask because it seems like as I like to listen to your guys' broadcast, whether I'm watching on TV or like Saturday, I'm in the press box, and it seems like you guys have been doing this forever. And I realize that I think this is just the second full year for both you and DB to be with Sharpie. And I'm trying to figure out where did that chemistry come from? Because it seems like you guys are the inside NBA TNT crew where you've been doing this forever, but it's really been a quick kind of gelling. Is it just a testament to how well you guys get along, or what do you chalk that up to? Because it's incredible.
You should hear us in the commercial breaks.
You should hear us in the commercial breaks.
I keep telling, actually, we get along in the commercial breaks. I'm just saying it's like a continuation. I keep telling people we should live stream sometimes what we're discussing in the commercial breaks. But, I think it just goes back to Greg and I understanding how to handle Damon because it's a lot,
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Just preaching with fire over here.
I know, you know.
A lot of haters.
I mean, first of all, you got to give it up to Greg. He's the seasoned pro. He's the vet. And, he helped me along kind of understand where I need to, what I need to bring and how I need to add. Because I had never done radio sideline before, and it's so quick. And so just understanding what I need to bring, and then even the things that they can't see, how I can help them see that or, pass that along. And so I think it's more so we all listen to each other, and then we can feed off of that as opposed to just saying what we want to say and not adding to the conversation. I think we all are feeding off of the conversation as opposed to just hey, I got this to say, I'm going to say it if it fits or not, type of thing. I think we kind of build off of what each other's saying and kind of can move that way. But it all starts with Greg. I mean, he's the ringleader of the show, and we kind of follow his lead.
It kind of sounds like, not to get too deep and philosophical on you here, though, but it sounds sort of like a microcosm of the way Coach Rhule's put his staff together, where if you don't care who gets the credit, you can do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But if we are the NBA on TNT, is Damon Charles Barkley?
Oh, I don't know. It might be Shaq. I'm not sure.
Listen, I'm one of the few that can actually pronounce names correctly, so I can't be Barkley.
Greg is definitely Ernie. I know
Yes.
that. That's all I know.
Jessica, you've done this. Listen, big markets, big college sports program in Oklahoma. Have you been around people that are held in such as high regard as Sharpie is, that has his humility? Because I actually think that's his key, right? We're talking about kind of how the elderly statesman and how he takes care of us. His humility is unbelievable in terms of how he just kind of approaches work in life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, he does. And, I know this with everything going on now, and this is not really him. He doesn't like all the spotlight and the highlighting on him, but I'm glad that it is. I'm glad that people are able to kind of show how much they appreciate him and love on him during this time. But he's he doesn't make it about him. And that's what a true, play-by-play person, the one that's running the show, they're the ultimate point guard, and they're about making everybody else shine. And that's what Greg does. And so, but he's definitely that. And this, like I said, this everything that's being done right now, and all the people that are, they honored him at baseball the other day. And I know that that's not really usually his hit, like what he likes, because he's so behind the scenes and low key and doesn't like to make it about him. But I am for one, I am glad that it is able to happen, and people are able to show how much they appreciate him.
Jessica, it's kind of, we'll get to football here in a second, but it's kind of interesting in situations like that where people who don't want the spotlight on them also sometimes realize that it's the other people that need to let, like at baseball,
yeah, you don't
right?
want to, you don't want to rob them of their blessing, right?
Yeah, it's as much for us as it is for Greg, right? And I think he seems like, I don't know him like you guys do, obviously, but it seems like he understands that other people need to show him how much they care for their own sake.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Will Bolt was adamant. I think he was one of the big ones that really wanted to do that. Will Bolt thinks the world of Greg Sharp. And so, you're talking about that's coming from the top down. That's not like some marketing thing. Hey, let's do that. You're talking about the people in the baseball program that really make a lot of the calls, that really wanted to make sure that they did that for him. And, I think it does it. I think it certainly has helped him too, see how many people are behind him fighting, and just the impact that he's made. And so, yeah, I think, yes, it was, we want to do this for Greg, but also the baseball program wanted to make sure and show, hey, this is what you mean to us, type of thing as well.
You and I had this conversation on air. I felt like I was on the hot seat with the awards and the athletes of the year. And it was difficult, right? Like, even I was like, if I talk to you for a couple more minutes, you could probably talk me into, person X. Were you like pleasantly surprised? I know Ethan Piper kind of stole the show with his speech, but like, were you surprised, or like, yeah, that's about right, with such a difficult year to pick the awards for the Husker athletes?
No, I wasn't surprised because I was on the committee that helped voted for it.
Okay.
But no, yeah. I mean, so if you go back to the award that Ethan Piper won, and it is just all the things that he's done. And, when you stack him up against some of the other athletes, he's an offensive lineman. He's not going to have a million stats that you can compare to, but he was so instrumental in establishing what Coach Rhule wanted to do here in year one. He earned a single digit, even though he couldn't wear it. He's an offensive lineman that earned a single digit. So he was a big part of the leadership group for Coach Rhule. Started on the offensive line till he got hurt. But then if you look at all the things he's done in the community service, and then he had an incredible GPA, like almost perfect GPA. So, that award that he won and Billy Andrews won was, the overall kind of student athlete, the community service, the academics, and then also the athletic contributions. And so, he just looking what he has done. He started a pen pal program to write to kids who have parents that are in the military that are deployed in a way so that they can have something to look forward to. So they, he established it, and he got people involved. And so where people are writing letters to those kids. And so some of those things that he's done, I mean, he is instrumental in helping to promote the road race. And I mean, his list of community service and the things that he's done in the community are just, it's really impressive. And so Ethan Piper, so deserving. I mean, all of them are, and a lot of them we had some debates on, but no, I'm not surprised. To me, I mean, you in the freshman of the year for a female, I thought that was the easiest one with Bergen Riley, just because you have a setter. It's like a quarterback, and how important that is, and getting them to the national championship match. And then Antrell Taylor and Jaylen Lloyd.
Tough between he and Lloyd.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably would have leaned toward Lloyd, just because he's a contributor in two different sports, and that's just, I mean, who does that type of thing? But you certainly can't take away what Antrell did and becoming an All-American and how he was able to finish the season. Athlete of the year was Eleanor Dale. I think that how do you kind of argue against Eleanor Dale, which any 4 of the women that were nominated there could have won. And then male athlete of the year, who was that? Oh, Till Steinforth. Yeah, I mean, I think he could be the best athlete on campus, what he's done. You know, I mean, he just comes in and wins the long jump championship. So, it's a good problem to have when you're having these kinds of debates and conversations of who could win. But there's a lot of good choices to choose from this year, especially on the female side.
Jessica, I'm glad you brought up Jaylen Lloyd because I think he's a guy that we're going to look at as we get into fall and the actual season as someone who is sort of an epitome of this Coach Rhule program, right? He does things the way that Coach Rhule likes, and he's also that sort of track athlete type guy that provides proof of concept for some of these other guys that Coach Rhule goes out and gets. How impressed have you been just with the development of Jaylen Lloyd from last year where people are talking about, he's just a straight line speed guy, kind of a burner, to turning into sort of a full-fledged wide receiver?
Yeah, you can just tell how well he's liked too. I did a report on this too, just the way that the team, and this goes back to last fall too, when he starts contributing and how pumped the sideline was for him to get involved. You could just really see how embraced he is by that football team. And so to me, that speaks volumes right there. But yeah, you can't coach speed. And we all thought, what are we going to do without a Trey Palmer type of receiver? And Jaylen Lloyd says, hello, I'm here. So you can't not, I mean, how do you cover that? That's what Greg and I were talking last night. I mean, if Tony White in the spring game is not able to bring his full arsenal of attack to try to make things complicated on a quarterback, you're a lot of times asking a DB to match one-on-one with Jaylen Lloyd. And I don't know how you do that because he's just so fast. But yeah, I think all the other things, and he talked about that too. I asked him about it, just how has he developed in the confidence? Because he wasn't in spring ball a year ago. He's one of the guys, this was his first spring. And so he comes in the summer and immediately starts showing what he could do. I know that they were impressed by him. I saw him make several big plays in fall camp last year. And so then you have some of the wide receivers go down. He gets his opportunity. He makes the most of it. And then he's able to really establish some confidence. He built off that, carried that into the spring, and then was balancing both track and football at the same time, but still was able to absolutely handle everything he needed to in the football side of things, and has continued to only grow his role even more. And you can tell those quarterbacks really like throwing the ball to him.
That's cool as you guys are talking about Lloyd. And I think of Coach Maguire and how far he's brought a lot of those young wide receivers to the barn. Getting Bonner back in that room and getting him ramped back up to speed. And you had the fantastic interview with Bullock before the spring game. And I'm a huge fan of kind of what he brings to the table. And it's funny that both their coaches are kind of a testament to what Coach Rhule wants. ABCs, right? Always be coaching. And a lot of what they do, and you see it because you're super close. That's why we're always picking your brain during games, right? It's like those coaches, they're not always on camera and they're not, the ones that are grabbing all the headlines at pressers, but they're a direct reflection of what Coach Rhule wants. Be controlled and teach under chaos and always be coaching.
Yeah, I think it's just been fascinating every time I chat with the wide receivers and even like the older guys like Jamal Banks, when I interviewed him right when he got here, and he just, all of them go right to with Garrett Maguire, how much he understands the game and knows the game, that it's just mind blowing his knowledge and how much he can teach and understand. And how much they've learned from him. And then Rob Dvorak, you could just tell the guys just adore him. And he's not a big yell screamer guy. He's not that type, but he just, they are so good about getting the most out of their guys. Right. And I go back to what Dominic Raiola told me on the sideline about why he believes in Coach Rhule. And he had mentioned something about, he's somebody that can get the most out of people, whether it's, the people that he's on his staff or the people that are playing for him. And I feel like, now Garrett and Rob and some of those other coaches they are the type of people that can get the most out of their student athletes that are in their room. And it's really impressive to watch, but and they're not all the cookie cutter same type of coach, right? But how they do it, it all fits and it all works together. And I mean, Garrett's on the offensive side of the ball and Rob's on the defensive side of the ball, but especially on that defense, how well that they are a well-oiled machine. It's just they all work together and gel, and you can give that up to Coach Rhule. He's a genius that put it all together.
You and I, this because we talk about this kind of stuff like on the road, and I said this out loud yesterday on the show. I like Coach Satterfield quite a bit, and I know his personality is vastly different than some of the other coaches, but I like his resolve because he's one of those guys that's firmly anchored. He's a loyal guy, and he doesn't get distracted by criticisms or compliments or anything. You said this during the Minnesota game, and I'll never forget. You talked about the contrast in offensive staff dealing with offensive players and defensive staff dealing with defensive players. Have you kind of noticed a sense of calmness with the addition of Coach Thomas and Coach Satterfield? He's smiling a little bit more, and I get it, right? A 5-star and another good freshman quarterback can help, but he seems to. I'm starting to see some similarities in offensive and defense in terms of just the ability to go out and teach.
Yeah, I think so. And I think he really likes coaching the tight ends too. And I think that's a fun group for him to be around. And I think they've got some really good pieces in there that, you had said this on the show the other day. It always helps when your coordinator is your position coach, because then they're like, hey, let's see how we can get them involved in the offense a little bit more. But I think they've got some weapons in the tight end room that he's going to be able to utilize some. But, that's a lot of pressure, I think, and a lot to ask of an offensive coordinator in your first year to try to also develop quarterbacks and think about all the different switches he was making last year with all three having to play and trying to figure out, and then all the injuries to the wide receiver room, the offensive line. It just was so much that they had to work through. But I started to see that kind of towards the end of the season. I think the offensive staff and Coach Satterfield really got their groove, and he had moved up to the booth. And so I think it was just more
that's a good key move, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I think it was just figuring out what works. And then now, yes, I think you've got 2 freshman quarterbacks, and even Heinrich Harburg, you could argue. I've been asked a lot, and I know a lot of people have taken note of this. I think he's really grown a lot just since the last time we saw him on the field in the fall to where he is now. And he made some great throws the other day. So I think just knowing the amount of work it takes to develop and grow those young quarterbacks, but then also, hey, let's figure out this offense. I think it was a good move to be able to bring someone in that handles the quarterbacks. They worked together before, and they understand the direction of Coach Rhule and this offense. And so I think it was a great move. And I think Coach Satterfield feels good about, yes, the quarterbacks that he's got, but also the other talent that they've been able to bring in. And then you've got a veteran offensive line that we didn't even really see hardly any of the spring game.
I know, right?
So, I mean, you've just got some pieces now that if you're an offensive coordinator, you got to be really excited about.
Jessica, you're talking about Ethan Piper earlier. We're talking about tight ends. It makes me think of Thomas Fidone and how Coach Rhule talked about him in the presser, talking about Heinrich Harburg. And it almost seems like Coach Rhule's been able to find a guy at almost every position group that is as good for the team by just being a culture guy as they are from any talent standpoint. Do we give enough credit to his ability to finding guys that are good at the culture part, not just good at the football part?
The Elliott Browns, the Chief Borders, like those guys, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I think some of those players were already here. Some of them they brought in, but you go back to where, and I know Chief just entered the transfer portal, but a lot of these guys, how they're not leaving, and they're bought in, they're sticking in. And I go back to the Isaac Gifford conversation. He had unfinished business, and Ty Robinson could have left. And he said, I believe what we're doing. I couldn't just leave what was established. So yeah, I think there's getting a number of those guys. And he told me that the other day he said, that's why I believe we will win, because we have good leaders, that it can't just be about the coaches. It's got to be about the players. And I think they've definitely established some guys that are taking this thing on and taking account, taking responsibility and putting it on. Hey, I want to be just as part of this and helping establish that they're really convicted about making sure that this thing is continuing to move in the right direction and establishing the things that they need to be able to pass the baton on to somebody else. And so that it keeps leaving it better than you found it. And so, yes, I think he's really excited about the leadership group that he's had. And, I think it's the way that he motivates people and gets guys to buy in. And then, it's when those types of players are bought in, then it's easy to follow suit, certainly.
Yeah, you just said leaving it better than you found it. And I can't remember the sideline interview of the player that said that, right? Whether you're in the classroom or the weight room or at a restaurant or you're in the community, to leave it better. And I just remember listening to that, and I'm like, that individual accountability where you see the behavior modeled, it's amazing how that seems to have kind of permeated the team so fast, right? Like
it actually was
only
cheap.
Has to be a way. Yeah, that was okay. That was cheap. Yeah. Okay.
And I'd asked him, about raising the standard, and he said it's everything that you do. It's everything that you do when you talk about being the type of elite football team that they want to be. It's not just on the football field. It's everywhere that they go, everything that they do. They hold themselves to a higher standard. So yeah, I was that quote hit me too. That's why I couldn't forget who said it.
Jessica, a couple minutes left here with you. Probably should talk about the quarterbacks here. You mentioned how impressed you were with the development of Heinrich Haarberg. What did you think of the ability of two true freshman quarterbacks to look like they can be functional navigating a high major offense?
I think it speaks to, again, the talent of those quarterbacks, right? I mean, and we've heard it from really the start since they stepped on campus, how they've handled themselves, both Danny and Dylan. And they've not acted like freshmen. And I talked to them in spring and they were like, yeah, the first couple of days it was like, what the heck is going on? Everything's so fast. But I think they were able to catch up so quickly because both of them, I think, really live in the film room. They dive into things. They are so, they are like pros already, and they understand that, hey, it's not just me coming out to practice or being in the weight room. Like, there's the extra work that I've got to do to be able to be the kind of quarterback that I want to be. So if there are things, if they make mistakes in a certain practice, I think they go back and dive into the film and figure out, okay, what could I have done differently? And so, a lot of times with young players, they have to figure out how to do the film work. But I think for both those quarterbacks, they both understood it coming into it. And so they have been one that has not been shy to tackle that. And that's what Dominic was saying the other day, how much, he's eat up by it and he loves it. And Dylan, and he, he wants so much to be good at it and to for everything, that all the hard work to come to fruition. So everything he can do, he wants to do it. And so I think Danny's the same way. And I think that carries over, if you've got someone that wants to dive into those types of things, into the film and the other things outside of just being on the football field, it certainly helps you be more prepared and correct mistakes more quickly than what a typical true freshman would be able to.
Jessica Coody, Husker Radio Network. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jessica.
All right. Thanks for having me. I can't believe we didn't talk about the stadium saga. Next time.
Next time.